Hey guys, so for today's video, we're going to be talking all about Sigma's new eyeshadow quads that are launching on August 15th. They are launching 6 quads total, so in this video, I'm going to go through each quad, I'm going to give you swatches, but I'm also going to be comparing them to other Sigma palettes that already exist and see if there's any similar shades. I just wanted to make this video that will help you guys make a more informed decision on whether or not you want to purchase these new eyeshadow quads, because it can get really easy to get so caught up in just how stinking cute these are. So like I said, these quads are launching on August 15th for $19 a piece, and I do believe my code Angela Bright can be used on that to save a little bit of money. I gotta say, when I first got these in PR, I was feeling pretty excited, and I just think Sigma did a great job on all of these quads. In my opinion, these are like the perfect eyeshadow quad. And I say these are the perfect eyeshadow quad, again, in my opinion, just because in each quad you have a light highlighter shade, a light to medium matte kind of blending shade for the crease, and then you have kind of a deeper shimmer shade that's perfect for the lid, and then you have a deeper matte shade that's great for deepening up the look. So I just think that Sigma really thought these quads through, and they just make sense to me, you know what I mean? Sigma's color stories in general do lean a little bit more on the safe side, and I say safe as in like there's not any super bright colors in them, but I think that's perfect for the everyday person. And I just love eyeshadow quads in general because I think they're perfect for beginners or people who kind of have a hard time putting together a color combo, because like I said, you have everything you need in each quad to create multiple different eyeshadow looks. And of course, since they're little and compact, they're perfect for travel. When I was first just kind of playing with these quads and looking at them, it had me thinking that I feel like Sigma's palettes are slowly getting smaller and smaller, but I don't think that's a bad thing. We all know they have like their classic 14 pan palettes. This one is the new mod, for example. And then a few years ago, they launched the On The Go collection, and they have expanded it since, and these guys have 9 pans. And then it was either earlier this year or late last year where they launched like little minis of their full-size palettes, so these guys have 7 pans. And now we're at quads, which have 4 pans, so I kind of feel like there's something for everyone. So let's dive into these quads, do some swatches, and like I said, I'm going to be comparing them to Sigma palettes that do already exist. I want to start with the quad that really drew me in at first, and that I would probably purchase if I didn't receive these in PR, and that is the Peach Pie. Out of the 6 quads, I do think that this one would be the best seller. It's just perfect for your everyday eyeshadow look. Like I said, in each palette you have your highlight shade, a light to medium blending shade, a deeper matte shade, and then another shimmer for the lid. And this quad leans a little more peachy, a little more warm, which I like the name Peach Pie for it. So here is Peach Pie swatched. Again, you can see how the shades do lean a little bit peachy. I wanted to first compare this quad to my eyeshadow palette because when I designed this palette, I purposely made this little quad of shadows right here to be like the go-to everyday quad. These 4 shades are the first quad in my palette. We have Bright, Basic, Champagne Problems, and Schmoogala. You can see that my quad leans a lot more neutral compared to the Peach Pie. So I was going through my Sigma palettes and seeing if I could find something that does lean a little more peachy like this one. And I pulled out the Spicy On The Go palette, and you can see that these two do have a very similar color story. So I'm going to swatch the 4 shades in this that correspond best to the 4 shades in the Peach Pie quad. So from the Spicy On The Go palette, we have Biscotti, Triced, Moonshine, and Bootleg. This shimmer right here does have a little more depth and pigment to it than the one in the quad, and the highlight shade in Spicy is lighter than the one in the quad, but I think overall the vibes are very, very similar. They both have that peachy, warm tone to it. So if you like the Peach Pie quad and you want more of this, you would probably really like the Spicy palette, and vice versa. If you have the Spicy palette, you probably don't need the Peach quad. So the next one is Caramel Apple, and I love the name of this one because you do kind of have a matte brown caramely shade, but then like for the apple you have these really 2 pretty greens. I think these are gorgeous. So when I first saw this quad, I immediately thought of a few of the On The Go palettes. It made me think of these 3 On The Go palettes. So first we have Beachy, and there are some blue shades in this, but these greens are not really close to the greens in this palette at all, so I'm gonna pass on this one. So next I pulled out the Earthy On The Go palette, and these two do look pretty close, but when the shades are swatched out, the greens are not comparable. And for the third one, I pulled out Ivy, which again has that green in it, but it does have more blue shades, but the greens still aren't similar. Let me do some swatches. So here's the Caramel Apple quad on its own. Again, I just love these green shades and how this is just like a deep forest green. Okay, I swatched 2 shades from the Earthy palette that I thought looked similar at first, but they're really not. You can see this one's just a lot of a lighter, kind of brighter green, and this one leans a little more olive. And then I just swatched 1 shade from Ivy. It is this green right here, which is pretty close to the one in the quad. I do feel like this one is a little bit deeper, but let me show you what else I found. brown. So I went to the Sigma Untamed palette, which I believe is discontinued now, but look at these two green shades right there. Here they are next to the quad. You can see they look super similar, so let me show you the swatch. So these are the two greens from the Untamed palette, and yes, they are, I would say, almost an exact match to the quad. So I found a match for the green shades, but as far as the matte brown in this palette, this one does lean a little more neutral, whereas the matte brown in this palette does lean a little more cool toned. I'm gonna go ahead and swatch the shimmer shade from the Untamed palette. So you can see that one leans just a little bit more pink than the one in the quad. But with all that being said, if you have the Untamed palette, you probably don't need the Caramel Apple quad. I'm actually gonna swatch this green shade from Ivy just one more time because the name Envy is the same as the green in the Untamed palette. See? Envy. So this is Envy from Ivy. I guess maybe my first swatch of that wasn't that great, but yeah, that green shade looks the same across all three of those palettes. The next quad I want to dive into is the Bon Bon quad. This palette leans a little bit on the pinky side, but I would definitely say it's more mauve. And I looked at a few of the On The Go palettes, but none of them were really exactly right. So I pulled out the Rosy On The Go palette, and you can see that this one is just a lot more rosy in general. It's not very mauve-y like this one. I also pulled out Electric Pink, but I still feel like it's not a great match. I also pulled out the Hazy On The Go palette, but this one leans a little bit more kind of grayish cool toned, again not mauve. But you know what Sigma palette does lean very mauve? It is the New Mod palette. So let me show you some swatches. So here's the Bon Bon quad on its own. And here I swatched 5 shades from the New Mod palette. So from New Mod we have Hot, Sophisticated, Artsy, Edgy, and Street Style. This shimmer in the quad does lean like slightly more gray than the one in New Mod, but I do think this first lighter matte shade is almost a perfect match. And now these shimmers definitely are not the same. This one kind of has a little bit of a black base with the purple reflect in it, whereas this one is a little bit more rosy. And I do feel like these two darker matte shades are pretty similar. So while I don't think these two are a 100% match, they are pretty similar. So maybe you really like the shades of the Bon Bon palette and want more of this, you would probably love the New Mod palette. But again, vice versa. If you already have New Mod, you probably don't need Bon Bon. Okay, next quad I want to dive into Creme Brulee. Now this is the quad that I'm wearing on my eyes right now. This gold shade is freaking stunning. I love it so much. This is another quad that I think will be a bestseller just because it does lean a little more neutral, but this pop of gold will look good on any eye color. I gotta say, I think this gold is one of the prettiest gold eyeshadows I have ever seen, and like it's a very true gold color. It's just stunning. You'll see it in the swatches. So for similar shades, I pulled out the Ritzy On The Go palette. This is one of my favorite On The Go palettes, but it's not that similar because this palette doesn't have that beautiful gold that this one does, and the tones of the browns just aren't that similar. But for the gold in here, I did find that the gold in the Fiery On The Go palette is pretty similar, so let's do some swatches. So here's the Creme Brulee palette all on its own. Isn't that gold shade just stunning? I feel like it doesn't show up as good on camera, but does it ever? And I did want to point out that this highlight shade does lean a little bit more yellowy. So I'm gonna swatch the shades in the Ritzy palette that I thought would be similar. Okay, these 4 shades are from the Ritzy palette. So we have Gossamer, Nectar, Midas, and Enrich. I do think the deeper browns are pretty similar, but with these shimmers right here, you can tell that this one leans a lot more orange. These light to medium browns right here are 2 totally different tones. For the highlight shade, I feel like you can really tell how yellow this one is compared to the one in Ritzy. I am going to swatch this gold from Fiery. So that is the shade Sunsprite from Fiery. It does have a very similar tone to the one in Creme Brulee, but again, the shades in Fiery lean a lot more reddish orange, so they're really not similar to Creme Brulee. So I couldn't really find any other shadows in Sigma's existing palettes that are similar to Creme Brulee, so I would say that this color story is pretty unique to Sigma's shadows. Let's dive into the 5th quad. We have Tiramisu. I also love the shades in this quad. This one does lean more cool tone, so if you love your cool tone shadows, this one is for you. I did also film a short using this palette. I don't know if that short is up yet though, but it'll be up soon. So again, I went through all of my Sigma palettes and I could not find anything that leans so cool toned like this quad. I thought maybe a couple shades from New Mod are kind of close, so let's swatch those. So here's the swatches of the Tiramisu quad on its own. So just looking at the 2 palettes, I thought these 4 shades from New Mod might be similar, but they're clearly not. In case you want to know what shades they are, this is Hot, Sophisticated, Glam, and Grunge. The only similar shade is really just the lightest highlight one, but other than that, there's no similarities. So that got me thinking, I don't think Sigma has ever done a full cool toned brown palette. So I do think that this Tiramisu quad is pretty unique to the brand and its colors. So last but not least, we have the 6th quad, and that is Blueberry Parfait. Like I said earlier, I feel like Sigma is always pretty safe with their color stories. So yes, this is kind of more of a bluer quad, but it's a very safe blue quad. And that just means that I think anyone could wear these colors and still feel 100% comfortable in them. So for this quad, I think the unique shades are these 3 right here. We've seen a lot of palettes so far that do have a light highlight shade like this, but these 3, they're pretty unique. The closest thing I could find out of Sigma's palettes would be the Ivy On The Go palette, so let's do some swatches. So here's the Blueberry Parfait quad. So I swatched 2 shades from the Ivy palette that looked similar, but they're really not. This is Elixir and this is Thistle from Ivy. Elixir kind of has almost like a rainbow reflect to it. There are a lot of different shades in there, where I feel like the one in Blueberry Parfait does lean a lot more just blue overall. For some reason, when I first saw the Blueberry Parfait quad, I thought of the Cinderella palette. But even just comparing these 2 palettes side by side, you can see how much more cool toned Blueberry Parfait really is. So again, I couldn't really find any shades similar to this quad, so again, this one is unique to Sigma. I am just covered in eyeshadow right now. There's like 20 palettes laying on my desk. So just a quick recap, out of the 6 quads, 3 of them I could find really similar shades to existing Sigma palettes, those being Bonbon, Caramel Apple, and Peach Pie. But then the other 3 that I think have more unique shades to Sigma are Tiramisu, Creme Brulee, and Blueberry Parfait. In case you want to know my top 3 palettes and like if I were to buy ones, which one would I buy? It would definitely be a Peach Pie, Tiramisu, and the one I'm wearing today, Creme Brulee. I also wanted to mention, I did a video a few months ago where I used a Give Beauty quad and I showed you 3 different ways to use that quad, and I loved filming that and it was super fun. So if you want to see that type of video again using one of these new Sigma quads, let me know which one you want to see. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.